over the years, I've been commissioned to write music for a variety of different things, more commonly things like short films and promo videos, that sort of thing. But one of the more interesting gigs I've had is writing music for an escape room. Somebody I know runs an escape room, and a couple of years ago they got me on board to do the music. Their first room was themed around smugglers, Victorian era England. It was based in a town hall, and for that I only had to compose one 1 hour piece of music, which was basically in the background throughout your game. It was a fairly sort of obvious genre piece, in the sense that I just went for a Victorian sounding, slightly creepy piano piece that went throughout the entire game. But something slightly more interesting that we put in there was, because the game took place in a town hall which had a bell that would chime, we, at 15-minute intervals, had the bell chime to keep the player aware of how much time they had left. And at the end of the game, at the end of the hour, the bell would toll on the hour. So it was quite an immersive sort of interaction with the music, I thought. But now I'm writing the music for their new room, which is quite a lot more interactive. Rather than one piece of music throughout the whole thing, this new game has various moments where we will have either short snippets of sound or a change in music. Now, the theme of this new game is quite drastically different. It's, without giving away too much, it's based in a dystopian game show, I would say. So we're going for I went for quite synthy sounds. I was quite inspired by the Tron soundtrack that Daft Punk did. But without much further ado, I'd like to show you what I've written for it, show you how I made the decisions that I did, and give you a sense of the sort of things I had to think about when writing for this slightly unusual setting of music. So let's start by looking at the main piece of music that plays during the game. Much like I described for the Victorian-themed game, this game also has an hour-long piece of music that serves as a bed throughout the game, always in the background as the player is playing. Now, unlike the other bed I did for the first game that they made, this one actually starts with what is effectively the theme tune to the game show, because as I said, we're in this dystopian game show. So we start with this segment here, which is the theme song to the show, and then it descends into a background bed, which will play throughout the game. So let's have a listen to that. As you can hear, we now descend into more of a background bed, and a heartbeat sound starts to fade in. And the purpose of this bed is sort of twofold. The most obvious purpose of it is to create atmosphere, of course, and put the player in a slightly uneasy place. But it's also actually quite a practical tool, because when you're in the escape room, you want to feel immersed as possible. And, you know, try as they might, you will always get sounds from the outside world coming into the space where you're playing the game. So the purpose of the bed, well, the reason it's got this constant drone, is to try and block out any background noise, to keep you as much in the game as possible. Now, the sort of vibe I've gone for here is I tried to go sort of halfway between the bed you'd get in the background of a game show, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. That's why I've got that heartbeat there. But also, I've got this more almost Brian Eno-esque synth, just to make you feel almost like there's a cinematic element of it. There's something beyond just the game show here. Kind of put you on edge. And yeah, basically, as I said, this is a hour-long piece of music. It doesn't change an awful lot. Something it does do, which I did fairly subtly, is it increases in tempo over the hour. So if I skip forward half an hour in, we should hear the tempo is now faster. So you can hear that kick drum, the heartbeat sound is faster now. But the player wouldn't notice that over the course of half an hour. It just slowly ramps up the tension. So that's the bed that plays throughout most of the gameplay. But there's a stage in this game where you access the final level, sort of the boss. And for this, we've actually got a different sound. Now, what I've done here, this is it here. It's once again a long bed. It's an hour long again, because the thing is, different people will complete the escape room at different speeds, at different rates. So the music needs to be as long as it can be, just in case someone's taking ages to complete the game, just to give you that flexibility. But that's quite an interesting challenge to overcome as a composer, because you don't know whether the player is going to hear, the listener is going to hear the piece of music for 15 minutes or 30 minutes. So you have to think about how to space out your material, how to stop it from getting boring, but also making sure they actually hear a decent amount of variety in whatever duration they hear it for. But anyway, this second bed begins with an impact sound and the sound of something sort of powering down. Because what's happened at this stage, without giving away too much again, is you've accessed a secret area. And the moment you do, you'll hear this impact sound. So as you can hear with this one, I've gone for that heartbeat sort of background sound again, but this time we've swung almost completely into the realm of sort of cinematic music. This is where I've really drawn from the Daft Punk Tron theme. Almost got a Stranger Things vibe to it as well. Just very uneasy, sense of peril, sense of determination, sense of moving forward. Now what you'll hear in a minute is a lead synth comes in, and it's playing an adapted version of the original theme tune, which is about to come in just a second. Now obviously this main theme that I've adapted here, you only hear once briefly at the beginning of the game, so the player may not consciously notice that it's been readapted for this, but hopefully it helps sort of bring together the world of this music, tie it all in. So this piece of music will probably get played for less time than the first piece, because people will probably spend more time in the first stage of the game than the second. So this one I did go for more variety. It's less of a background bed, more of a piece of score, a piece of music. So if I skip ahead a little bit, actually here, let's not skip ahead, let's just listen here. So you can hear now the dynamic is changing quite significantly here. Something I tried doing with this piece of music is holding off when I wanted to change stuff. So basically what I'm saying is, if I was writing more of a piece of music designed for listening to, I would introduce variety more quickly. But because this piece of music is designed to serve as a background piece of music, I didn't want to sort of change through my ideas too quickly, because if anything, it would be too hectic that people would, because they're not paying as much attention, by the time they kind of notice the music, it would have already changed. So as you can hear here, I'm spending quite a lot of time in this changed dynamic. But I don't want to spend too much time, of course, because I don't want it to fade fully into the background. I do want it to be fairly present in the player's sort of awareness. So I think just about here, we're going to return to that synth arpeggio thing. Now, just like with the first bed, with this one I've also made it subtly speed up. If I skip forward again, skip over here, you can hear how the tempo increases. But once again, it's so subtle that as the piece of music's playing, you won't notice the speed increase. It's just sort of a subconscious thing. So that's the main two beds that will be playing throughout gameplay. But we've also got some other elements that are going to happen during this game. For example, when you win, or also equally when you fail the game, there'll be sort of a concluding piece of music that caps off the bed. Because obviously the bed is designed to be able to play for as long as it needs to play. So it could play for 20 minutes, it could play for an hour. You don't know how long the player is going to take to finish the game. So you need a way of capping it off so it doesn't just sort of fade out. So if you are successful, the bed will suddenly switch to this sound, which is meant to symbolize you've basically defeated the enemy. So you can hear a sound of them almost like powering down, of losing energy. And then you get a bit of a victory sound. So let's listen to this. So I like that studio audience sound, because you're in a game show, right? Even if it's sort of dystopian. So I like pulling from game show sounds. Similar, as I mentioned, if you fail the game, you'll get this sound instead, which sort of hopefully people won't hear as often, because hopefully people will be completing the game. Let's have a listen to it. So with that one, we've got some tritones going down, which is the universal sign of something bad. And then this time we also have some crowd sound again, but it's more of a displeased sound, and I've passed it through some distortion as well. So it's a bit uneasy, a bit uncanny. So that's the main piece of the music. Now all I've got left to show you is a few little sound effects. So for example, there'll be a moment where you make a selection. In your game show, you're selecting something, and we'll have this sound for that. And we also have a moment where you press a buzzer, which will sound like that. And we have a moment where you put a coin into a machine, which will sound like this. And you may have noticed, oh, actually, I've got one here as well. There's also, you can ask for a hint during the game. So if you do that, you'll get this sound. So you may have noticed, but with all of these sounds, I've gone for quite a big reverb. And that's because I want to try and create the sense of you being quite a big space. The game does take place in a relatively large space, but I want it to sound even bigger, give you a real sense of atmosphere. But But that's it. That's all the different sounds. And what is really interesting about this is it's a bit like writing video game music, thinking about how the music will actually interact with the game. Because obviously there's various cues, various moments that you need to anticipate and try and make the music match that. But unlike film music, where it's the events of the film are set in stone time-wise because the edit's been completed, every game will be different. So you need your music to be dynamic and changeable, which is always quite a big challenge to overcome. And what's also interesting about this is the music is not the primary point of attention. It's very much in the background. So you need to think about, how can I make the music not intrusive, but also have moments where it grabs the player's attention, maybe sort of makes their ears prick up, makes them jump a little bit. But yeah, really interesting challenge. But let me know if you're interested in me doing more videos like this where I break down music I've written. And yeah, thanks again for watching.